This panel, Carrie and I had a conversation a few months ago as to a lot of us in this room actually started out as mobile DJs, and I can say almost every one of them either still DJ, still do mobiles, that kind of stuff. But we got a pretty intense group up here of program directors, music directors, and like I said, a lot of these guys still work in clubs, DJ in clubs, and are on the air as mix show guys. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna tell you, everybody's quick story as to how they started and where they ended up now. And Pup's out there too. First up, Will Calder from Power 96 in Miami. Next, good buddy of mine, Kobe. He's a program director at Hot in Syracuse. Many of you know the man next to him, Matt Basso from AMP in Boston. Next up, my boy, who we spun together in Lancaster, Harrisburg, Mike Miller. He's now in Baltimore. iHeart. You could hear this man every day at 12 o'clock in New York on 92.3 at AMP, Jay Dobby. This guy, I don't know how many jobs you got, but he's actually spinning here in Vegas too. Super James, part of Royce Broadcasting. They have stations in Palm Springs, San Francisco, and Las Vegas. He's the man. Next up, I'm privileged to have from Power 106 in Los Angeles, the legendary E-Man. And then another big cat next to him, owner of JVC Broadcasting. They have stations in many places right now, aside from Long Island, Florida, Mr. Vic Latino. So like I was saying, we all have very similar stories, and I tried this morning to try to say my story as I was picking up the rental car in a minute or less, if I can say the story. And it may be a little bit over a minute, but I'm sure everybody's gonna be able to tell you a very similar situation. I started out when I was 15 years old as a mobile DJ. My dad bought me equipment to be a mobile DJ because that's what I wanted to do. We were talking before, making mixtapes and all this kind of stuff. So my first job, for $50, I get hired to DJ a Sweet 16. My dad had to drive me to the job. He drives me to the job, 11 o'clock picks me up. The house thought I was great, and they're like, hey kid, what are you doing next week? I'm like, nothing. How much do you want? I said, for what? We got a party next week. Well, pay you, I said $50. He goes, great, I'll pay you $75, be here at 7. So I started as a mobile DJ. That led to, in 2 years when I was 17 and still not old enough, I wanted to work in the clubs and ended up being a club DJ on Long Island and Queens. That ended up rolling into being a billboard reporter. And I was a billboard reporter for a number of years, and that led me to my first job as an executive for a record company running dance promotion at Polydor. The next step was being a local promotion man for Mercury. That evolved to running promotion, co-head of promotion at Maverick Records for Madonna. And then I ran Top 40 promotion at Epic Records. Then went over to Universal Motown, and currently I'm at Atlantic Records working for John Boulos, running Top 40 as a senior vice president of promotion. So the point being, it started out with a $50 DJ job to get to the level we're at right now. And I think many in this room know I still DJ out a lot. I have a number of mix shows on the air around the country, one in WKTU, one at AMP in Boston, too. But it's still a passion, and all of us, I guarantee you're gonna hear the same story from all of these up here, have a very similar stories, but I think it's about, the most important thing is the passion we all have for the music, too. So we'll give a brief, maybe I was a little over a minute and a half there, but as brief as it can be, because what we want to tell everybody is, you can start out from that level and get to where all these are, and everybody on this panel is pretty impressive with who they are and what they do right now.
All right, for me, it starts back in late elementary school, middle school. Every night at 10 o'clock, I'd have to take a shower, and my dad had speakers installed in the ceiling in the bathroom, and every night I'd listen to the 10 o'clock remix on B96 Chicago. listening to Bobby D, Bad Boy Bill. You were Mixin' Mark back then, and you'll always be Mixin' Mark to me, but shout out to the old B96 crew that created my love for mixing, and my first gig was $5 at a junior high soul show, which they threw me in there, because I was the guy that was collecting records, and back then CDs were starting to kick off. And then I started making mixtapes in elementary school and high school. I would make the people buy the cassette tape, bring it to me, then I'd record the mix, and they'd still have to pay me $10. From there, I started doing some clubs in southeastern Wisconsin and in the Midwest. And fast forward a little bit, my career started taking a turn to the internet, and I created, along with several people who used to come to these conventions, and back when we did the Winter Music Conference in Miami, I had iParty Radio, an internet radio station from 2005 to 2010. And then from there, Dom Theodore got his hands on my iParty Radio Internet Music Master database, and said, hey, we got to do something with this kid. And so I got a job at 92.3 Now, working with Jay Dobby and Toro and all those guys around here. And then also going back real quick, working with Rob Austin. We were the guys that created basically the mix show, radio mixes on Jam Tracks. And outside of that, I'm still doing a syndicated mix show that runs as the Noon Mix on Power 96. I'm actually moving it back to Jam Tracks because he can market it in the ways that I can't, because I'm too busy as being the APD music director, image director, midday guy on Power 96 in Miami. So yeah, so from New York, I ended up at, also Dom Theodore helped me get the gig in Miami, and that's my story.
That's so awesome. Kobe has a little, like, I think, reverse situation where you really didn't start out as a mobile, right? But now you're doing a lot of mobiles because of this, correct?
Correct. So I've been a PD in radio. I've been in radio for almost 20 years. And I've always been enamored by the DJ lifestyle. A lot of my best friends are DJs. And I was always the guy who was the MC at all the club nights. And I loved what these guys were doing. I just couldn't afford the Technique 1200s and then the mixer. So when I was in Jacksonville about 5 years ago, we had DJ Scribble at our show, and it's a funny story off the stage, but for DJ Scribble ended up connecting me to a Guy Tractor, and the Guy Tractor sent me my first controller, and it was and I started just screwing around in my bedroom, being a bedroom DJ and a program director during the day. And then eventually I just kind of caught up to speed, and I started doing clubs in Jacksonville, and then I've been doing clubs. I went to Pittsburgh, I was doing clubs there, and now I'm in Syracuse. And I got like 2 gigs a week and running the station, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm backwards.
Which is awesome. Matt, I know, definitely started out as a mobile DJ. Worked for a pretty big company in Brooklyn, Staten Island?
Yeah, like you, I started out like 15 years old. You know, I paid maybe $50 to help my buddy DJ a Sweet 16. Got a loan from my parents to buy equipment, and just played anywhere I could, like anywhere I can get paid. It didn't matter. It was a private party, it was a club, a bar, whatever. And I grew up just in love with radio and listening to Z100 and Hot 97, and then KTU came along in '96, and you know, I never thought radio was a possibility when I was in high school and in college, and coincidentally met Joe Causey, who was doing weekends at KTU at the time. Now he's at CBS FM, and he was just like, you know, I'll get you in the room for the interview. The rest is up to you. And got a street team internship, got hired at the end of the summer, and immediately just started hanging around the studio. We would have like these club gigs. You know, Vic knows we were doing, I mean, every night of the week we were doing broadcasts, and you get back, unload the van, and I'd sleep in the conference room for like 2 or 3 hours, and then run the board at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, because I wanted to be in there and I wanted to learn. And Sky, who was the music director before Bartell at KTU, I knocked on his door pretty much every day for about a month straight, asking him if I could help him with anything, and eventually he said yes. And he started teaching me about scheduling music and interacting with record labels. And then about a year into that, Vic's producer left, and I started working with Vic on his night show, and so I was doing that for 2 years while hanging out with the music director every day, and eventually ended up on the air in some markets around the city, like Sussex, New Jersey, and Poughkeepsie, which led to producing morning show for Cubby for 5 years, and doing weekends at KTU, and working with Hollywood Hamilton on the Remix Top 30, doing the music for that and filling in for him. And then down to DC, and then life brought me up to Boston, and then coming up on a year at AMP Radio in Boston as APD-MD.
Which is awesome. Mike Miller's next up, and pretty interesting because Mike and I always compare notes because Mike has, aside from being a tremendous program director in Baltimore, he has a huge mobile DJ business that when he got offered the job in Baltimore, like, how the hell are you going to leave this thing? He's like, I'm going to commute back and forth. I'm like, you're fucking crazy.
Sure am.
Are you going to do it? And he's been doing it right now, but he has a huge mobile business that he still has, aside from being on the air in Baltimore, be the program director, too, of a pretty huge iHeart station.
Yeah, thank you. It all started because of radio. Like, what happened for me was I started DJing when I was 12 years old, and that's how I started the company. It was actually by a lie. And before that, though, I would sit in my room and listen to radio. And in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I only had two options. It was WLAN FM 97, which there's somebody here tonight who's a big influence to that, and that's Toby Knapp, who's over here right now. And somebody who I actually have never had a chance to meet face-to-face, but I was able to pick up his radio station in Lancaster. And what pulled me in was hearing him say, hey, it's me, it's Albie D. And I heard that, and I'm like, oh, this guy got me. And I was like, man, this is great. So what happened is I literally was walking through the hallways in school, and I heard a mom talk to a teacher and say, I need to find a DJ for my daughter's Sweet 16. And I stopped, and I was like, I'll do it. And she's like, oh, you're a DJ? Yeah, I am now. And it was like a very nervous reaction of like, okay, how much? And I said, $100. And she's like, done. And so I went home to my parents and said, all right, school was great, but guess what? I now have a DJ company. And it was one of those things like, you're shitting me. Like, are you serious? And I said, well, here's what's going to happen. And it was one of those things where, like, I went there, I did it, I rented speakers and some par cans, and we already had the CDs. I played, jock jams and all those types of CDs for the party. And my parents, who drove me, because I was only 12, they saw something, and they were like, okay, do you want to do this again? And I said, absolutely. So we did some simple marketing in the school with flyers, and it turned into then another Sweet 16, which then turned into taking over our local pool in Quarryville, Pennsylvania, and starting a teen night, which then became the most popular local attraction in our town, which says a lot in Quarryville. But it was one of those things where it just kept growing and growing, and then finally I said, okay, now that I'm able to drive, I want to get into radio. And I think whenever I DJ, I always picture myself, because of the two influences here, like I picture myself while I'm playing music at a party, like I'm entertaining to the masses of radio. And it turned into something where I saw that the WLAN was at a remote, and I had newspaper articles about my business and stuff like that. And I took it to them. I was like, look, I want to do an internship. I want to work here. I was only 16. They're like, we don't have anything for you yet. A month later, saw another guy who was the guy who brought me into radio, Pat Kane. He was the night guy, and he saw me at a remote. I said the same thing. I'm like, I want to be your intern. I'll do whatever. I know music. I know equipment. And I came in. I did an interview. I became his intern. A week later, I started part-time at FM 97, and then grew up from there. And then in 2001, after I graduated high school, I actually launched WHKF in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, when I was 18, along with another guy named Jason Barsky. And then from there, went to KKRZ in Portland and became APD nights, afternoons. Brought me back to Harrisburg to do mornings, and then at the 10-year anniversary of the radio station, I finally became the program director of that radio station, which was a really cool moment. And then they got the call in December saying, hey, we want to put you in Baltimore. And I said, are you sure? And they said, yes. I said, okay, here we go. And that's what happened.
So it's pretty interesting. We'll get into how you're still doing the mobiles now. Next up, again, dear friend from 92.3 New York, Jay Dobby, who started out again, and you still do club appearances like crazy, still get booked on mobile jobs also right now, too.
Yes, I started doing private parties, same as everyone else, like when I was like 14, 15 years old. But then I couldn't take the requests and all the annoying stuff comes.
I think that's what stopped it for me. I wanted to work in the clubs then.
Yes, I just wanted to work in the club, so I kind of like went away from it. And then the stigma of being a wedding DJ or private party DJ, I wanted to be in the clubs. So I was in the clubs for the next like 10, 15, 20 years. And then DJ Toro gave me a shot on 93 with Will Calder, and I started doing like guest mixes. Guest mixes turned into 3 a.m. mixes, and I worked my way through all the different hours to now where I'm on 93.3 AMP Radio every day at noon. And as of today, today's my first day as music director, so I'm the new music director of AMP Radio.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
I just asked him, I go, am I allowed to make the announcement? So glad you did it.
Good first day of the job, right? Not even show up.
When we talked about it last week, you were like, I don't know if I could be at the panel.
But with the funny thing about private parties is, for me, it's the other way around. Now that I'm on the radio, I'm using that to build my private party business. So the more I'm on the radio, the more, I started getting all these inquiries in, and I started doing these events. And, like, I was DJing, and the person from the New York Knicks heard me, and then she wrote me an email, say, hey, I want you to DJ a Knicks game at Madison Square Garden. Tracy Morgan was at that game. 1 year later, I DJ'd his wedding. And it just started building and started building. So now on the weekends, especially over the summer, I do a lot of weddings and a lot of private events, more than clubs over the summer now on Saturdays. And it really, really, really pays the bills.
Good second source of income.
Yeah, it's really good.
What I didn't say is, so when I went from 15 to 17 and started working the clubs, I had all these clients too. So my brother took over the business basically. My brother has a mobile DJ business now, and he does well over 1,000 jobs a year. So it can end up being a very successful business if you want to continue with the mobiles. Again, everybody here pretty much chose to go the other route, to go on the corporate side of things too, but you can't even do the mobiles.
Oh, and these mobile parties these days,
they're paying.
Well, it's not even about the money, but it's not like a long time ago. You're not playing chicken dance. You're not playing, they want a club at their reception. So it's just like being in a club, and everyone's partying and drunk, so it's a lot more fun, too.
James, like I said before, I don't even know where to begin with you. It's like how many jobs you have. It's like the Seinfeld. How many jobs you got, man? Between the 3 jobs programming, all the DJing you do in all these towns, and like I said, I think you even spinning here in Vegas on Wednesday. But, we had an event together. We had a Charlie XCX event that we rented out in Elvis Chapel in Vegas, and they were like, we need a DJ. I'm like, I'll ask fucking James. And James brought his stuff, and we ended up jamming together. And actually, Kobe was there too. And the 3 of us played together. And it was like, private party inside the cell.
I don't really remember that, but yeah. No, man, it's crazy because, stories similar, same way. Kind of came up in the mobile and radio side at the same time. A cousin of mine was a mobile DJ, took me with him one day, gave me some old equipment he had in the garage, and took it home with me. Just happened to have a family friend that was doing mornings at a radio station. Like, I want to, come go hang, see what is this. I was really interested in the music side, so ended up connecting with him. And before school, I would go produce the morning show, do everything, all the segments, get everything ready, go to school, go back, mix on the afternoon show. Did that for a couple years. Ended up working at that station, couple stations in town. This is out in Palm Springs, and just continued same thing. Mobiles. Obviously, too young to work at the clubs. Sometimes got in there, but yeah, just continued that on and stuck with the radio stuff and kind of just built it together. Like he was saying, it kind of goes hand in hand, especially with the club gigs. The radio, of course, it helps out, the branding with the name and all that stuff. Moved to San Diego to work at a station for about a little less than a year. And moved to Vegas when I was 18, and I was working for a station in Palm Springs. Same company I'm at now. We had just signals in Palm Springs, and I was living in Las Vegas. And owner happened to buy out there, just luckily, and just kept buying. So I was doing nights on all the stations, doing my club stuff, traveling. Went through a couple program directors, and just kind of finally came my way, and it was like, well, let's let him go with it. So yeah, like I said, now doing afternoons still and programming the 3 stations, clubs, traveling,
live mix shows, it's like craziness.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it all went hand in hand and continues to build.
But you're still doing there's still mobiles, that's still.
I still have a mobile company. I hardly do the gigs because I'm always on the road and stuff like that. But yeah, the mobile stuff, I just feel like it's, he had a good point that the mobile stuff is a lot different. It's basically one nightclub at our house, so it's not. But it's fun. I think it's a different experience. It's a way to experience different things. Being in the club every night, the house parties can sometimes be wilder than the nightclub stuff. So,
all right. Next up again, we're just really, really privileged to have E-Man from Power 106 here.
Thank you.
Again, I know you still play out there like crazy too, but I know you started out, just like a lot of our stories here.
When I tell my story, I tell people DJing was a hobby turned business turned career. So about 8 years ago when I was 13, is when actually
he's full of crap. I know.
Way back in the days.
I don't want to tell you how many years I know you.
Well, back in the days, my cousin brought me a mixtape, and that's where I got my first introduction to mixing. So from that mixtape, I was very eager to learn. I thought it was like intriguing. I was like, yo, what is that? And then I just started practicing, and it became the hobby, trying to learn the scratches and learn the actual mixing. And then it kind of turned into a business when I took my first house party, which happened to be next door for some gangsters. I didn't get paid for it, but it was a good introduction to DJing a house party. And then I got offered my first gig doing a wedding for $150. And then from there,
he made triple what you made double. I'm the one $50.
$150 for 6 hours of DJing. But from there, it evolved to a little business. Because after that, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. So just from family and from friends and people I knew, it was just word of mouth how I got my DJ business started and how it kind of spread. So it went from weddings to private parties to 18th birthdays to sweet 16th birthdays to proms. And then eventually it turned into the clubs. And then from there, I felt like I wanted to take myself to the next level. And during that time, Power 106 started to do more mixing. And they had mix shows on Kiss FM at the time. And back in the days, I also heard it on K-Day when it was on the AM station. But in '94, I decided to submit a mixtape to the Baker Boys when they were doing their mix shows for the mornings. So I just dropped it off. And then next thing you know, I get hit up on a page. I get a page from a number. It ended up being the radio station. And they were like, hey, we really liked your mixtape, and we want to give you a guest slot on Power. And so I went up there, did it, kept in touch with the people there, and then Bruce St. James, who was the music director at the time, Rick Cummings, who was overseeing programming, they started to do mixed weekends. So I did an audition set on Christmas Eve.
Live with turntables?
Live turntables, vinyl, and everything. And then the day after Christmas, I got a call, and they said, hey, we really like what you did. We liked your programming, so we want to give you a job. So that's where I started my first mix show on Power 106 in January of '95. Since then, mix shows evolved. They never had a mix show coordinator. So I took the first role. I was the first mix show coordinator for Power 106. Then became assistant music director, then music director, and then assistant program director. So that's what I'm currently doing now. I'm also still doing the morning show. I'm on our third morning show now at Power. And again, all that just being on the radio and DJing, it evolved to a lot of the clubs and doing stuff and traveling as well. But if there's one thing about mobile DJing that I learned, and I think what gave me an advantage getting to radio was actually programming. Because when we're out doing these mobile gigs, we're actually DJing for an audience. We're there to entertain and play music they want to hear and have a good time to and make it a memorable experience for them. So hopefully they hire us back or they spread the word and we get other business from it. But I think to me that was very key, is just understanding programming and how to play for 4 hours or 5 hours or if it's 2 hours, just knowing how to spread your music and just keeping them alive and enjoying themselves on a dance floor. And if anything, that's the key thing I learned from mobile DJing.
I think the guy said before, it's so different now with the mobiles, and the wide range of music right now is because of Spotify and go down the list.
Yep. I will say though, back in the days, I was telling this to Vice and Echo that was here. Back in the days, it wasn't also just about the music. It was about your DJ setup. So where I grew up, if you had the biggest DJ setup from bass bottoms to speakers to lights and all that, you won. It wasn't about the music. But to this day, I'm still doing mobile stuff. I'm doing stuff for a lot of the high schools and still doing private parties.
All right, next up, again, this is pretty important. Again, Vic owns a number of radio stations, and still is on the air, still does appearances all the time, too. Pretty impressive. But I know, you started out just like stories we all got here.
Yeah, just like all the guys here. And to echo what Iman said, when I was younger, coming from a big family, we used to always have a lot of parties, sweet 16s, quinceañeras, weddings, and whatnot. And I was always be fascinated by the one guy standing behind the booth, how he would be able to command the audience, to get them out of their seats, to have them dancing, and would create everlasting memories for our family. So, you know, as I started to get older, I always wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to try that. Unfortunately for me, you know, growing up in Long Island, all my friends were the DJs of all the DJ companies I wanted to work with, Razor and Guido, DJ Scribble. The list just goes on and on and on. So I decided to go the opposite route and be the MC at the parties. So I was the guy out there on the microphone, jumping up, doing the chicken dance, the hokey pokey, the electric slide, and getting the crowd going. And you know, but that's what got my fear from being, I guess my fear of being in front of crowds was eliminated at such an early age from being an MC. And, you know, as we got older, we started going to clubs and hanging out with all these DJs and networking and whatnot. And you know, that's how I got started into my career, which took me from Long Island to Orlando, Florida, back up to New York at KTU, and from KTU to back out east to Long Island to where we started JVC Broadcasting, and you know, that's currently what I'm doing now.
Which is crazy. So, Mike, how do you find the time now to do, you know, the amount of mobile stuff you're doing, and, you know, to do a great job in Baltimore?
I have stock in 5-hour energies. No, it's surrounding you in the same way in radio. It's like surrounding you with the right people, the right team. It started as me just being a DJ, and then I expanded my company in 2007, and now I have 19 employees. And it's to the point where, and now when I took the job to go to Baltimore, one of the main reasons I wanted to do that was, one, it's still in the area. It's only like an hour-and-a-half drive away, hour or so. My warehouse is located right near the highway, so it was one of those situations where it's like, I know I can do both, but at the same time, I can trust my team back home to continue running this with the same vision that I had. And knowing that I'm still a phone call away, I still come home and do the gigs on the weekends, I can still do evening appointments if I want to. And with everything that we have going on, we all have like multiple jobs in radio. We all know there's no just one position now. It's time management too. You know, I go home and you know, as a father of 3 kids and a husband, I make sure I devote the time to them. But then at night, I drink that, you know, 5th cup of coffee, and then I devote to the DJ business. You know, and it's like it might be midnight and I'm shooting out emails to my clients, but at the same time, I still have that passion for both and that love for both equally, and that's why I think I can pull it off, because both of them to me are not a daily job. It's my love of my life, and I'll do it till the day I die.
It's crazy. We got only a couple more minutes left, so I want to see if there are any questions in the audience. Izzy, can you be my...
Yes, sir. Here I am.
Any questions for anybody up here on the panel?
Wait. Jim? Oh, wait a minute. By the way, I threw Carrie Vance out of my office in 1978 when he told me he was a mobile disc jockey. He'll tell you that story ad nauseum.
I just wanted to add that indirectly, Promo Only actually started as a mobile DJ company too. I was doing mobile DJs for Disney, and actually I started as an assistant promotion director, following up Cat Thomas, who was there, who put my first aircheck tape together for Dennis Reese, where he put me on the air for the radio station called Y106, which turned into XL 106.7, and then I eventually turned into the XL 106.7 Party Machine, where I was doing all of their mobile DJ stuff. And thanks to Cat Thomas and everybody like that, it grew and grew, where I met Pete Warner at a promotion where we were having a concert series with Debbie Deb and Stevie B, and those people DJing at his club called JJ Whispers. That's how him and I met, becoming friends from My Mobile DJ and him being a club. And then the rest was history. We came up with the idea in '92, 25 frickin' years ago.
I will say too, that was the first promo only was the first compilation like CD collection I always got. Like when I was able to find that and get the catalog and see those each month, that was like Christmas monthly. Because then you knew also what I loved about the connection was that you heard him on the radio and you're like, okay, wait, Promo Only first had him out, then I hear him on the radio, and it was a great tie-in. So good job to you guys too.
I think we all used the Promo Only CDs back in the day. Loved our music.
One more question over here.
All right, what's up, guys? So how do you keep maybe the two entities between being like the trendy club rocker DJ separate from maybe being the uncool wedding DJ?
Wedding DJs are cool now, though.
You want to elaborate on that one?
I think, you know what? I think a lot of the gigs that these guys take, too, are not the gigs that they're going to be playing the chicken dance. You know, I think it's pretty, if they're hiring Kobe, or they're hiring Mike, or they're hiring Jay, or E-Man, or James, or Vic, you know what you're getting. You hired Vic Latino. He's not going to play the chicken dance. I mean, pretty much, you know?
No, I get that. I'm just saying, like, putting it up on your socials, you know what I mean? Like, from being at a festival-style stage at the same time to owning, like, a wedding company, is that the same thing you want on your Instagram feed, on your Snapchat stories? How do you keep those kind of separate?
It's a great question.
You know what I mean?
I'm sorry. I think one of the things that I've noticed from when I was doing weddings and stuff, you kind of brand yourself as being the guy who will do a wedding, but you do it as like a festival. Like, I've done one thing in Pittsburgh that really differentiated me from like a lot of other guys was I tell the clients, like, if you want me to spin this like a club, I will spin this like a club. And they're like, well, so all the music's gonna go together and there's not gonna be any silence? I'm like, yep, pretty much. That's how it's gonna be. And when I started doing that, like, they were amazed by it. And I think that it kind of just builds your brand that, okay, that's the guy that's going to spin a wedding, but it's probably going to be more like a club than an actual wedding.
Yeah, I think Jay mentioned it before. Most of the mobiles that I'm getting now, if I'm getting, is from being out in the clubs and doing a club appearance, and then they want to hire you, you know, to do a private party, a 40th birthday, a 50th birthday, whatever it might be. I did a Sweet 16 the other night, and I'm saying, listen, I'm not 21 years old. I mean, I might not get on a lot of the rides at Disneyland because I'm under 5 feet, but
I feel your pain, bro.
I'm a lot older, and
he had to say that before we did.
Yeah.
No, they know what they're going to get when they're hiring. I mean, Jay was saying the same thing.
Yeah, like I don't really post too many private party stuff on my Instagram unless it's like some crazy venue that I'm doing or something like that. But I don't want to put it like that because I like to market myself as I'm not a wedding DJ. I'm a club DJ that happens to do your wedding. Like, you know.
I think Jay answered it best. I think that's what I was.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's what I try to do. I think it's the stuff that we do on the radio and in the clubs that markets the weddings and all that type of.
You're not going to go on your Instagram and post a flyer for a wedding, or you don't really market the mobile gigs aren't really getting marketed like the club and other events.
I know one of the things that I do differently is I will try to actually split the radio side away from me as a DJ. Like, when people are interested in talking to us as a mobile disc jockey service, I never say, oh, by the way, I'm that guy that's on the radio. I never will do that. Because
I am, though.
Yeah.
I am.
I would do the same thing.
I want them to be like, okay, he's a DJ true at heart, and that he loves the music, and he's in this industry first for this. But it's cool if they find out. If they ask me for it, then yeah, I'll tell them and talk about it. But at the same time, I like to keep that separate a little bit, and then they can see that if we're out at a concert with the radio station and they see they put the two together, they're like, oh, wait, that's the same guy. It's cool, but then when you play the right songs, it all ties back into radio as well. Like, the songs we're playing at weddings now are the ones that we're playing remixes of at weddings that people are losing their minds over, and they connect the dots. And I think if you're smart about the way you socialize and market yourself, you're going to be set.
I'll even one up that. I have clients that come to the radio station building after like 6 o'clock, and I'll bring them into a conference room to have our meeting. And then as we walk by the station, I'm like, oh, you want to check out the station? And then they get wowed by it.
That's genius.
It's like clockwork. I take them around, and then I bring them to the studio, and Toro's there usually at night. He says the same things to every client that comes in, and it's like an act now. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, my God. And then it's like, oh, we're signing.
Don't get it twisted, though, because I'll still play Cha-Cha Slide and Cupid Shuffle at a wedding.
Hey, it's Lucas Prada. I just wanted to say, if you guys have any Sweet 16s, I'm still available for Sweet 16s. I did a show called My Super Sweet 16, and I bought my house in like 3 weeks.
He's gonna do the same damn song at every fucking party. How many of you guys willing to admit you play Gangnam Style? How many of you guys willing to admit you play Gangnam? Cool DJs that you are.
You know something? You still do, because every once in a while you want that oh wow record, and
I gotta
the
be
fact
honest,
that nobody's playing
I did
it.
get a request for it
when
about-
you drop it, people are like, holy cow! You know?
About 4 weeks ago, and I played it out, and it got over. Now, that was the first time I played it in how many years? But I agree, Vic.
And you might play a different mix of it. You might throw, like a trap beat underneath it or something. But you're still doing it because it was a popular record at one time.
And it goes back to the fact that we're getting hired to entertain an audience for their event or party. I don't think it'll hurt our brand that we're playing a song or a few songs that we wouldn't play on the radio at a festival or at a club.
Bon Jovi all day.
Yeah,
right?
please.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Have a good rest of the convention. Thanks to Promo Only for throwing this every year. We really greatly appreciate it, Jim.